Welcome to Homeschooling Simplified, and I have Zach with me this evening. Hi, Zach.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, my name is Zach Spicer. I'm originally from Austin, Indiana. I grew up there, went to high school there, graduated from Austin High School in 2001. Then I went to Indiana University Southeast, and I earned a degree in journalism and a minor in advertising. And about a year later or so, I started at Tribune.
And does your job require high school, community college, technical college, or that 4 year or more degree?
I believe when we've had openings at our newspaper in particular, I believe it does say a 4 year degree is required. I don't think it necessarily has to be in journalism because I believe we've had people with other majors that have gotten jobs there at the newspaper. But I think with most kind of jobs like that, a 4 year degree helps, but also what helps is some experience if you have any, whether it's in high school or college, anything like that. I think any of that would definitely help for sure.
And what is a typical day like for you?
In this business, it's not really a typical day. I mean, today's a good example of that.
Yeah.
um, uh, with COVID-19 impacting everybody, we had our kind of first impacts at the office where I had just sat down in my chair and was expecting to start my day, and I get a text message that we all have to quarantine. So that's one example of how things can change.
Yeah.
Because then you have to gather everything to make sure you can do everything from home. So I've never had to do this in my 13 years. So to
Yeah.
work from home, hardly ever that I can recall. But like a typical, like when it comes to the news part of it,
Hmm.
uh, no 2 days are the same. That's for sure. I mean, I can think of a few years ago when we had the downtown fire. I mean, we had pretty much the newspaper done, and we're wrapping things up, and then hear about that, and so you just have to change your whole paper. So you just kind of have to be just ready for whatever happens. And I mean, really, yeah, there's not really a typical day. It can just change like that.
Okay. And if someone's interested in this type of career, what classes do you think they should take to prepare?
In high school, I was on the newspaper staff, so that's definitely a good start, especially if you're
Hmm.
interested in newspaper writing or photography or just writing, period. I think that helps. If your school has a newspaper staff, that's a good way to go about it. And then when I was in college, I had to, for my degree, I had to take a year of the student newspaper. So that was a good experience too, because you're also, between that and some of the classes you're taking, gives you interview experience and getting comfortable talking to people that you don't know,
Hmm.
approaching people that you don't know, finding out about things that you're not really that knowledgeable of. So I think any like just any kind of real world type experience you can get, the more of that, the better.
Yeah. Were there any classes that were your favorites?
It's kind of funny looking back, especially on college. I can almost think of some of my other classes that I had to take that were required for my degree that weren't journalism related, or actually stand out to me more than anything. One in particular was an African American literature class. That was very interesting. I also had to take a science lab class, and I was in that semester. The only class that was available was all for biology majors. So that was very interesting. Um, there was an art history class I took once. That was interesting. And then also there was a Friday night astronomy class I had to take for a science elective. So
Very
those
cool.
kind of stand out to me really more than some of the journalism. But one class that really stands out to me was I had to take a media ethics class, and I just remember that class really well because we met in a circle every day, and it wasn't a very big class, but our teacher or professor was she was an ombudsman for the Courier Journal in Louisville, and she was just very interesting. So And media ethics is a big thing, as we probably know, maybe even more so to see the importance of that today. But that was a really memorable class.
And so we kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but does your job change often? And if so, do you have to update your skills and knowledge along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to I always go back to the fire story when it was downtown because we just thought, oh, well, I don't know if this is really going to be much of, and then all of a sudden we have people from those buildings coming to our building to take shelter. So, and then we're having to go over and tell the story. So, I mean, your job can just change really fast. And I think just the more experience you gain on the job, the more comfortable you know how to handle those situations. Because I can't imagine if that would have been my first day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
that would have been definitely different. But yeah, you just have to kind of be ready to adapt to whatever the situation is because your day can change in the matter of any kind of breaking news that happens, a fire, a wreck, um, a shooting or a murder or anything like that. I mean, it can really just change everything that you're doing that day. So,
Now, you work for our local newspaper here in Seymour. Is it just you are doing most of those stories, or there's like a team, or how does that work in your office?
yeah, I'm one of the reporters, and we have three others right now, and our editor. And then we also have a full-time sports editor that covers mainly the high school sports. And then he has like what they call a freelancer, which just means that's not their full-time job, but they just do it as they can, as they're available, and then they get paid for what they do. So that's how many people we have on our writing staff. Now our paper also has advertising representatives and an advertising director, and you have to have advertising to have a newspaper, and then from there you get the content for the news. So we have two ad sales reps and then a ad director. So it really takes all of those people working together
Mm-hmm.
to have a paper, really.
Yeah. And how many days a week do you work and about how many hours?
Since I'm in the newsroom, it's usually 5 days a week, about 40 hours. Now that changed whenever I was sports editor, because I was a salaried employee then, and you may have worked 50 to 60, but you're getting paid for 40. So, but that was probably 6 days a week easily every week. So that was a lot of evenings, a lot of every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much all year round. So it was a big adjustment going back into the newsroom whenever I did 6 years ago. And I have a pretty set schedule of about 40 hours a week.
And is that Monday through Friday?
Yeah, you might have an occasional Saturday if there's events going on. Of course, this year there's not been very many weekend events, so that's been a little different this year.
Yeah. And so are you paid hourly, by salary, or commission?
Yeah, all the reporters there are paid on hourly pay. We have our editor, our advertising director, our circulation manager. Those kind of positions are salaried, so they get paid for 40 hours if they work 40 hours, and then they may be on call to work even beyond that, but they just get paid for the up to 40. And then the advertising representatives, they actually have a base salary, but then they also work on commission. So that they're really the only people that rely on that.
And so with you, you said you kind of got that set schedule, so there's not a lot of overtime in your position.
No, not really, because especially now that we have the number of reporters we do. Now, if we had less reporters, or say if somebody's on vacation or something, you might end up with a little bit more overtime. But it's not anything that I wasn't used to working. So it's not out of the question to work a little bit extra if you need to.
Yeah. And this question's a little bit different, but what are your hobbies?
Oh, work isn't a hobby? I have a
Funny.
life outside of work? No, no, no.
You're supposed
That's another
to.
big. That's another big thing with being in the newsroom versus whenever I was sports editors, because whenever I did that, it was the evening, so I had really no time for a lot of things. Weekends, I didn't have a lot of time for things. So now that I'm in the newsroom, um, pretty much every weekend I'm around my family, so I get to spend a lot of time with them and do a lot of things with them. So that's nice. Whenever we could go do these things. Always like going to concerts, sporting events, Colts games, Pacers games. Always been a big fan of music, so I always like going to concerts. So those are the main things.
And what kind of music do you like?
Well, it's funny, in high school, I didn't like country music at all, and that's really a lot of what I like now. But if you listen to my iPod, it just goes all over the place. So it's a little bit of everything. So
And did you choose this career?
up until my junior year of high school, I wanted to be an English teacher because my stepdad was an English teacher, and my mom also worked at the school when I was growing up. So I always wanted to do that because he was an English teacher. He was my junior English teacher. Um, but whenever I got on the newspaper staff in high school, I realized that was something I could do, journalism as a major instead of going into teaching. So that's when I switched, and I never really looked away from that going into college. I mean, when I went into college, it was just a 2-year program where I went, but I knew my sophomore year it was changing to a 4-year program. So I was able to go, I went 5 years to finish.
Wow.
Because of that. But really, though, that's been ever since my junior year of high school, that's been my career choice.
And does your job seem exciting to you? And did you see yourself doing this when you were younger?
Yeah, I would say it's exciting, just the fact that I think anybody can have excitement in a job when it's no 2 days are the same. And I think a lot of people can say that. A good majority of people probably have good variety in their daily job that makes it exciting and makes you want to do it. Plus, if you work around good people and in your own office, but then also outside of that, it makes it really enjoyable. Teaching was always the thing I kind of wanted to do. So I guess not. And I guess the answer is no with that one.
Well, kind of, if you said you wanted to be an English major, right?
Yeah.
You gotta, I mean, it kind of is the same, sort of, because journalism, you gotta have those writing skills and make the story interesting and hold everybody's attention.
The writing is definitely a big thing, and also your grammar,
Yeah.
things like that. And also, I remember one of my intro journalism classes in college. One assignment always stands out to me, and I think that the professor did it for a reason. They had you interview a classmate, and you kind of got that practice of doing that, but then also making sure you spelled things right. Like the high school that the other student that I interviewed in Louisville, I thought I knew how to spell Wagner, but it's not spelled like you would think it would be. So that's just an example of, you got to ask whether it's a name of a person, a name of a school, name of anything.
Yeah.
You need to have good grammar, and then also your spelling skills are really important, because nobody wants to see their name in print and it's spelled wrong, or reference to it in the wrong way. So yeah, you got to have those skills.
Yes. And what's the most satisfying thing to you about your job?
I would say I always consider it an honor to share somebody's story. No matter if it's a positive story or a negative type story, but it can turn into a positive. I think your job is to tell their story the way they would maybe want it to be told. I always tell people, I never pressure anybody to tell their story, but if they do and they're willing to put their name out there, and a lot of times their picture out there or whatever it is, just things personal about them, that's a key thing, I think, in developing a good working relationship with them, so they trust you that you're going to tell the right story in the right way, in the best way possible. So I think that's satisfying when you've done that. And then in the end, it's not that you never do your job for praise, but whenever you get that feedback from them that they appreciated you telling their story, or they comment on that, I'm not hoping that everybody makes a comment about it, but I just want them to feel good about me telling their story and trusting me to do that. So
I think you've wrote a few for those around me, and like a couple of my sons been in the paper a few times, and I think you do an awesome job.
Well, I appreciate that. It's all ages. I mean, you go from the schools all the way up to senior citizens, or whoever it is you're talking to.
Yeah.
It's just neat to see different perspectives and to share those variety of stories. I mean, I think a lot of people, they'll come in and get extra copies of the paper if they saw their kid's picture in the paper or something. I mean, that's what we're there for. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we set out to do.
Are there any openings in your career field? And if not so now, do you think there will be in the future?
In our office in particular, no. I mean, we have our set staff, and I mean, we don't have any openings right at the moment, which that can change. I mean, in the past year, we've had some people switch jobs or whatever, or some people leave and bring in some new people. So it's just kind of hit or miss. The newspaper industry is kind of an interesting one because some of your bigger companies have gone through and had furloughs or layoffs of people that I've seen. And that's tough to think about. I just think, well, I'm just fortunate that I work for a company that's not really had that. We're not big enough probably to have that. But I mean, those things can happen just because of for various reasons. I've even seen some newspapers just go to online. So you probably don't need much of a staff. So I don't know if I see it ever getting to that for us in particular, but it's just kind of one of those things again where anything can change in the matter of a day, a week, whatever it is. I mean, things can change. So you just hope for the best and that you can still keep doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Are there any pros or cons that we haven't mentioned yet?
I don't think so. I mean, I've said some of the pros just about being able to share people's story. I think that's the biggest pro to the job because it's not about my name on the story and that I wrote it. It's about getting their story out. Really, it's about telling their story. In terms of the cons, I mean, the only cons I could think of was the having to spend a lot of time working, but I don't feel like I do that as much now because I feel like I have a lot more free time and freedom in the evenings, especially, and stuff like that. So the hours and stuff like that really don't impact too much at all because I have been able to get involved in some things that I wouldn't have when I was in sports and everything. But I mean, really, I guess you could kind of consider this a con too, is it's never easy to cover a death, whether it be in an automobile accident or a fire or a shooting, a murder, or anything like that. Or just somebody that has contributed a lot for a long time to something and they passed away. That's never easy to do. Never. It's just hard. It's just a sensitive subject. But then again, you have to tell those stories too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be ready to tell those if you have to. So,
Yeah. And as our last question, do you have any encouragement for those who might be seeking a career in your type of position, journalism or newspaper work?
yeah, I would say too. I mean, it's like a thing like with me. I mean, if you kind of go along in school and you have that idea, well, I want to do this. For some people, that can change every day. For some people, that can stay the same. And for some people, it can. Like me, I had that interest in teaching all along. Then all of a sudden, just that one class or that one experience kind of changed it all. And I think once you find that, stick with it. And if you get into it and you enjoy it, keep doing it. Because I think you have to enjoy what you do to be good at what you do. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing is if you enjoy it, you can make the most of it.
Right. I totally agree with that one. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Zach, for taking some time out of your evening to do this interview with us. And for those of you who are listening and watching, if you have any questions we didn't cover, just please comment or message me and I'll make sure I get those to Zach and we'll get those answered for you. Thanks so much, Zach.
Absolutely. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I'm happy to share my experience.
Yeah, thank you.